is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Make Money and Have Fun show. Today, I am super freaking excited because I have one of the coolest people coming on my show today. Today, we're sitting down. We're talking to Nathan Minnehan, who's actually a really good friend of mine, and he's a custom clothier. So I'm going to tell some stories about me today in today's show that I think most of you probably don't know about me and about my opinion and my kind of lifestyle or forte into men's fashion and style. But before we do that, I want to tell you how you can interact with us. So we have a really cool interactive platform here where you can actually come on and ask us questions. So if you're watching this live on Facebook or on YouTube, or wherever you're streaming us live from, you can actually type your comments right down below in the comments section. And check this out. I can bring them right up on screen so that we can see your comment. You can ask us questions, or you can just say great things about us, because today I actually had to dress up a little bit to see if I could dress to impress. And really, I was trying to outdress Nathan this whole time. So let's get into it. Let me tell you a little bit about Nathan, who he is and what he does. So Nathan Minnehan is a serial entrepreneur living in Porto, Portugal, with offices in Rochester, New York, and Stuart, Florida. He's the founder of Big Murphy's Custom Clothing, among several other successful ventures, including, but not limited to, Inspiration on Tap, Zeus Shields, and Make No Small Plans. He's also an author of books like Close More Deals, The Art of Framing Possibility, and 5 other titles, which are available on Amazon. And he's the clothier to famous names like Dr. Greg Reed, Ross Jeffries, and Ron Klein, the inventor of the magnetic strip on the credit card. He's an adamant stock enthusiast, a linguist at heart who's fluent in Czech, Spanish, Portuguese, and English, and he's even conversational in other languages. But Nathan is on a mission to help professionals show up powerfully in order to close effortlessly. So let's put a big hand together for Mr. Nathan Minnehan. What's up, dude?
Hey, Fred. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. I feel totally flattered. This new jacket that you're wearing is beautiful, man. This is the epitome of when you literally nothing but net a shot, you know? I mean, that jacket is totally nothing but net. Yeah.
Dude.
That's your color, man. And I love the shirt selection that you put with it today that we also designed for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I got the little, you can't really see it, but the Make Money, nope, wrong way.
Money, have fun
monogram.
Yeah.
I got all kinds of
plans.
There it is. Dude, it's been such a cool ride. So I want to talk to you first, and I'm going to talk more about this jacket and about clothing. But Nathan, what is your story? I want to hear it from you, man.
Okay.
You can answer that any way you want, although I will say I like to keep these around 30 to 45 minutes. So.
Okay. Wow. Well, you know what? Do you want the story that I tell people, that I used to tell people when I was waiting tables at a pizza shop in downtown Chicago, or behind my bicycle when I used to sell leather journals with a street vendor? Or do you want the story I'd tell people when I was driving them in Uber? Or do you, I told my story so many times. My story begins as an exchange student, essentially. That's where I had my first mega perspective, recreation. And, but my entrepreneurial story starts in Argentina. And I had this idea that I was going to go to Argentina, and I brought very little things with me, one backpack, in fact, for about 1 year. And I had an idea, I'm going to figure out my life's purpose. That was my goal. And I go down there, I bring one book, this Be Here Now book, and I end up falling in love with an older woman. And she really inspired me, this person. And I had an idea to create a brand around getting lost to find yourself and recreating yourself. And so I actually sold my guitar, my Fender Stratocaster. I bought, 300 pounds of leather, 250 maybe, 300 is a lot of leather, shipped it up to the States. There in Argentina, I actually was hand staining paper with coffee on my rooftop in Buenos Aires, and started sewing these leather journals. So I literally started, right now I have a brand where we make things, but I literally started out as an artisan, physically making things myself. And so I've evolved straight from that. I remember this rooftop in Buenos Aires where I used to live, in the city of Buenos Aires. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to create a brand. I'm going to inspire people. And this is kind of my thought, of why am I going to become an entrepreneur? And I started with these leather journals, and And I got back to Chicago, and ever since my family saw me again after 1 year, they were like, something's different about you. And it was that I'd become an entrepreneur. It was very evident that I couldn't stop. And I just day and night, nonstop thinking, and the power of thinking has been in creative thinking, has been the thing that has led, to the next steps. And you're still here, right? Because I can't.
I'm still here. I'm making you the
okay.
I'm playing around with the camera angles.
So how did I become a clothier? This is probably the way that we move forward here. So, I graduated from college, and I had continued to make leather journals. I had no idea how to manufacture anything. I started out working with Amish people, actually, that I found, and I had to teach them how to make all these leather journals, basically by sketches and over the phone. And through a series of trips, over to Europe, I continuously went back to the Czech Republic, where I was an exchange student, and I started making connections with factories in Europe. And 1 year, a friend of mine told me about Portugal, and he said, there's this awesome city that I'm studying architecture in, and I swear it's like made for you, and you really should come here. And so I set out, I designed a trip. I called it an inspiration vacation. And I decided that I was going to make a video about how to transform your life with a trip. I even subscribed to Kajabi. Long story short, I never made the course, but the coolest thing ever is that I then met the founder of Kajabi, and he became my client in clothing, but just an amazing friend, really. He's not much of a suit wearer, but we made an awesome suit, and he's become a great friend more than anything, more than a client or anything. But it was so cool that I went on this trip. Anyway, I got to Portugal. Instead of staying for 5 days, I stayed for 45 days. And I thought I was on a journey to make a video about how to transform your life with a trip. I transformed my life with a trip. I made a great mentor who taught me a little bit about higher quality items, including but not limited to eyewear, fine fabric, and shoes. And little by little, those knowledge banks, I call them, evolved over time. And they didn't just evolve by themselves. They evolved with a lot of mistakes, a lot of shoes that didn't make sense to sell, that weren't quality or didn't fit properly. And then I had this brilliant idea one day. I was going to start a brand of high-end leather bags, and this is Big Murphy's. And I was back in the Czech Republic, and I had a dream one night that I was going to make this leather bag company. And a friend of mine's wife grew up next to a shoe cobbler, and I went there, and I speak the Czech language fluently, and that's kind of not normal for an American. And I really struck up a great connection with these Czechs, and before you know it, they totally thought it was a great idea, but I didn't have a brand for that. And they said, we don't have time for this. And they're pretty curt, And I said, just hold on a second. I'm going to come up with a brand. I got an idea. So I go to this Czech cafe, and I remember that my great-grandfather had a pretty interesting story. And he was a defense attorney for the bootleggers in the 1920s and 30s. And so lo and behold, I had some very valuable treasures in my computer, because I had in fact scanned these articles I found when my grandmother passed, and I found these in a box. They were basically turning into dust, and I scanned them into my computer, and something told me to open that family archive file. And so I opened it. Sitting in this cafe, there's like this Ella Fitzgerald music playing. You can hear the wood floor creaking as people walk by. It's this old cafe, and I find this article, and it says, Charlemagne held sway over France with an iron hand. Your own Charles W. Murphy is equally omnipotent, but does so with the wave of a friendly hand rather than the gesture with the sword. And it goes on and on to give this crazy, elaborate description about my great-grandfather. And the end of the article says, he was large physically and mentally, did everything large physically and mentally. Charlie does everything with the wave of a friendly hand rather than the gesture with the sword. And he talks about his big cigars and big cars, and they talk about how it all reflecting the expansive nature of the Big Murphy. And when I read that line, I said, that's a brand. And believe it or not, since I got that name and things started to come together, the whole thing just kind of took off like this. It was like, I said to myself, I got back to Chicago. I said, I'm going to join the Metropolitan Club, which is a club on the 67th floor of the Sears Tower. I said, I have an idea. I really need to join that club. I joined the club. I did a lot of networking there. Really enjoyed my time there. I actually wrote my book Stitch, most of it sitting up there. And little by little, my network really grew. And I launched the brand on November 22nd of 2016 in their preeminent suite, which must cost, thousands of dollars. They gave it to me for free because I was going to bring a lot of people to launch the brand. And it was 2 days before Thanksgiving. They gave everyone 2 drinks and some food. You're talking a room that literally overlooks, you're at like eye level with the top of the skyscrapers all around you. And at night, it was absolutely breathtaking. And 150 or so people came, and I didn't sell one bag, and I still didn't sell any bags. But it was a great success because people came and they were very supportive. And at the time, I was still secretly a waiter at a famous downtown Italian pizza restaurant in downtown Chicago. And that's how I was funding all of this, along with later on doing Uber, which didn't make any sense actually at the time, but I was doing it anyway. And I had like 5 other things I was doing, but mostly all entrepreneurial, building websites for people and journals, tons of ventures, tons of things. And I actually shortly after that got a phone call from Greg Reed, and he said, "Hey kid, I love this bike that you've got, and if you can, get one to my conference, I can get you a spot to speak on stage." And all these things started to happen, and I said yes to all these opportunities. And basically, a huge wave opened up into my life, and that's where I started meeting some really amazing people that have also been and done the entrepreneurial journey and did it. And so I credit a lot of awesome things afterwards happening because of the the perspective that was gained through just the vibration. I think that it's like when you raise your vibration, and that's what clothing is for me. That's why I love wearing my clothes every day, because they put me into that mindset. When you raise your vibration, everything else becomes easier. And so I actually got to meet Greg Reed, and he was someone that I always saw on the internet. And and I donated this wooden bicycle, which, believe it or not, it came from Portugal. So this is the most interesting thing. When I first went to Portugal, I was supposed to be there for 5 days. I missed 4 flights. I stayed for 45 days. And I made a partnership with a father and son making a wooden bicycle that was all over the news in Portugal. That was this really interesting, luxurious bike. I ended up putting it into the Bentley store in downtown Chicago in the Water Tower. And then a Portuguese friend of mine moved to the States, and he helped me make a lot of videos, really high end, and some of them were about the bike. And that's how Greg had seen that. And so it's funny how this little item that I only sold 3 or 4 bicycles, right? But this bike got the attention of, for instance, of Greg Reed and Secret Knock. And that's how I was able to kind of catapult myself to there, but none of that came easy. And this is still, pretty far back in the story. But, after that, the coincidence, actually launched the brand on the same day that my great grandfather had died, which is pretty miraculous. That was an actual real coincidence. Happened to be the same day that JFK passed away, so it was a pretty legendary date. Another interesting coincidence is that I now have an office in downtown Rochester, right alongside some defense attorneys in the same building as defense attorneys. Actually, in the building next door to my great grandfather's office, which is where Frederick Douglass's office was, in the same building. So it has a lot of history. You
have such a cool story, man. I love every time you tell it. It's like I pick up new little anecdotes and hear little things, and it's so, like you said, serendipitous. There's almost like all these coincidences built in and stuff like that. But I want to go back to the part where you talked about your launch. You talked about launching Big Murphy's, and you were like, from there it was like, yo, I think I struck gold, and things are just kind of flying at this point. I think that and I'm just getting started in this entrepreneurial journey. I'm 25 years old. I'm running this show. I'm having a blast doing all this kind of stuff. And I think that really one of the things that happens for entrepreneurs like us is that we find something that just takes off. I always like to use the analogy of you're out to sea in a rowboat, and you're dropping a bunch of lines off at all sides of the boat, and the one that gets the tug is the one that we end up going with every time. And it's it seems to me like Big Murphy's is that thing for you that just kind of took you into the stratosphere and grew you from there?
You know, there was a fundamental difference where I went from selling things that I thought were cool to selling things that I knew that were proven in the market, that I knew I was very good at and could become really good at. And, you know, I learned with these Russian tailors, actually, or Ukrainian tailors and Portuguese tailors, and done a lot of all the learning tallies to a lot of you know, money in the beginning when you're making it as an Uber driver, as a waiter, you know, $100 at a time, 50 or 20 or $5 at a time. That's a lot of money, you know, and it literally, I got to a point where I was so tired that, cause I would work doubles actually over the weekend. So I would go in at like 9:30 in the morning. I wouldn't leave there until 1:32 at 2 in the morning. And I would sometimes do that 4 days in a row. And then I would wake up on Monday morning so exhausted, like a train ran me over. And I'd basically chill on Monday, but still doing work. And then I would like push in like, you know, Tuesday through Friday morning, just going so hard, you know. But the thing is, Big Murphy's wasn't the only thing. It was really a combination of stuff. And I just became such an entrepreneurial resource to where, like, you know, I have suits, I have a line of shoes, I have a website company, Inspiration on Tap. You know, that's something that's constantly going. It's totally in the background. I don't advertise it too much, you know. It's really funny. I have an assistant who ships out all the suits, and he takes care of all logistics while I'm in Portugal. And he always laughs because I can never remember all the things that are going on. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because we have like a ladies brand of clothes as well. But it's all kind of, it's going on there on social media. We have someone managing social media for us, you know, but the thing is, you know, Big Murphy's, I drove last year, 2019. It's interesting. I decided I was going to kind of transform my life with a trip again. That was kind of the main theme here. In 2018, I decided that I was too heavy. I was an airplane that was too heavy, and I needed to lighten it. And what did I mean by that? So my overhead was too heavy. My, you know, living in Chicago didn't really make a whole lot of sense anymore. And I realized a lot of my resources were in Rochester and Florida and California. I'm like, why am I in Chicago? And I really want to be in Portugal. So I was like, how am I going to do this? And so I decided that I was ready to rethink it. I was going to create a new plan. And so I literally put everything into 2 suitcases, and I went to Portugal. My lease was up in Chicago, and I moved to Portugal for about 70 days. And I realized that I was premature in the plan. But like anything, when you have that goal, you know, and I have this list of goals that I read every single morning and every single night, like the first thing I do in the morning and like the very last thing I do every single night. And I've been doing that since March 1st of 2019. And I really think that has helped me more than anything. And I will tell you that when I got back, I actually, you know, universe just sends you signs. There's a friend of mine who was from the exchange program when I was 18 years old in the Czech Republic, who called me and said he wanted to quit his job and run my leather journal business, Walk and Talk. And I said, you're got to be crazy. But if you promise that if I bring the machines to you in Oklahoma from New York and drive them to you, you better promise that you're going to, you know, I wasn't saying that, but I said, are you sure you want to do this? You know, he's like, I promise. I said, okay. So in January, I drove. My family thought I was crazy. Like, why don't you find someone local? You know, family will always think you're crazy. You have to follow your intuition. Yep. So that's always the theme, especially with entrepreneurs. And so I put everything into my Mercedes GLK. It was actually a good, even though it was, at the time was a crazy expensive vehicle, but it helped me. It got me where I needed to go. And I drove from Rochester with the car completely loaded. It probably couldn't have had any more weight in it. And I drove to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I unloaded all these heavy machines and all these cutting dies made out of, you know, these cutting dies for leather. And I taught my friend how to do everything. I spent about a week there. And little by little, I gave him a lot of other skills. And now he's basically like my right-hand guy. And then I went back and I said, I'm going to go back to Portugal again, kept going towards the vision. I was only there for about 1 month. And then Secret Knock was coming up, which I made a promise to always be at Secret Knock because it's such a great, like, it's that vibration. It keeps you bringing your best game every time, you know. And every time I'd go to Secret Knock, I was always making myself new suits, always ready to, you know, get a new jacket for Greg. And that kind of thing just kept, it was not easy. It was expensive, you know what I mean? Going out to California and whatever. But little by little, it was the most important thing to keep me moving forward. And actually March 1st, like last year, I got in the car. I actually drove in 7 months. I drove 47,000 miles all around the country. No one understood why. And I couldn't explain it to anybody, but basically it just made sense at the time. I had clients scattered all around the country. I had fabrics and suits and too many things to fly. It didn't make sense logistically. And it made no sense to drive, but it made the most sense to drive, because I could stop anywhere and whatever. And believe it or not, I really created some strong client relationships, and built up a lot of clientele during that time. And I learned so much. Actually became a Florida resident, so I'm actually a Floridian now somehow. Because so this was part of this whole plan I was working on about really shifting my entire life, and then I finally set up my base there, and I have a base in Rochester. I got an office in Rochester. So during that crazy time of driving around, I was constantly on the road. I wasn't in my hometown for more than like 10 days in a row for like 6 months. You know what I mean? It's like literally there would be somebody that was in New Jersey, and new client, a friend of mine, and no problem. Within a day's notice, like, okay, next day I'm on the road, 5:30 in the morning, I'm down there, then I'm driving to Baltimore, then to Florida. It was crazy, but it made sense at the time, and it was very exhausting, but it was that good kind of exhaustion. It was that exhaustion of, I was also taking time to, in Florida, sit by the pool and recharge and all that kind of stuff, but internet connection became the most important thing, like Starbucks is and whatever. But a lot of big lessons were learned, and I actually came back to Portugal again, keeping with the vision. So this was last November, was probably like my 9th time to Portugal. And I had been trying to figure out, how am I going to become a resident? Because you can only stay 3 months out of every 6 months, and or 180 days out of every 90 out of every 180. And it's very challenging, right? I don't, it's not my native language. There's a lot of, bureaucratic things, but I do speak fluent Portuguese now. And even though it was so challenging to figure it out, I'm actually now on my way to becoming a citizen, really coming along now. And this is the best part of the story, is that I actually came back after being there last fall, I really worked on my office, made it awesome. And in January, went out actually to Greg Reed's place, and we did this little like entrepreneurial show pilot thing that was interesting. I don't know, we'll see if it goes somewhere or not. And I came back, and that's when I got to meet you guys. I met Fred. I always knew when I saw you on Facebook we were going to meet one day. Sincerely, right? Yeah. And
I'm glad you saw me on Facebook. That means all my stuff is working.
It is, dude. And you have like gone through metamorphosis. You know what I mean? Like in the years, amazing. And so just to tell you, just to like kind of, when I last saw you guys, and I went to Portugal, and right before coronavirus hit, and I got here, and I literally went to the grocery store this one night, and I was working on suit designs, and all of a sudden I realized I was going to have to get on a flight to come back to the States. It was totally ridiculously shocking. And I got on a plane the next day. I had actually fallen in love. I'd met this amazing girl, and anyway, and I got back to the States, and I'm like, I can't stay here. I have to go back, Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, the biggest gift probably to date happened. And I realized that I could manufacture masks. And so I took all of my entrepreneurial wisdom and all of my quick speed and ability to implement a project, and my graphic design team, we put together something really, really efficiently. And I knew to call the news. I knew that I had something. And so I called a bunch of news networks and actually got on the news. And it was crazy, because my family and everyone in the city that knew me were like, how are you making these masks? And the title was, one local clothing maker has switched his production from suits to masks, we didn't switch from suits to masks. I just had another ability to make masks through some manufacturing connections I accumulated over the years. And it's interesting that that proved to be, to date, revenue-wise, is the most successful venture I've ever done, and it happened in like 3 months. It was absolutely crazy. It was really an amazing time. it was like entrepreneurial growth on steroids for me. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And it tested in so many ways. I mean, there was one challenge after the next every single day. I mean, because we went from setting up an account with Shopify, with Square, with all these things, going from like 5,000 to like 50 to more, revenue, like immediately, almost immediately in the eyes of, a new business. And somehow I kept sitting there thinking, how am I going to get into Portugal? And the only way to get here was to buy a house. And so the only way to see my girlfriend was to actually make my dream finally come true, which was to buy a house in Portugal. So I said, I'm doing this. I'm gonna buy a place. I'm gonna do it. And I did it. And now we're remodeling it with, I've got a guy helping. And so it's like this dream has come true. It's really
absolutely
amazing.
It's an amazing story, dude. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Oh man, there's so many pieces in there, just so much stuff that happens, and it's really, it almost reminds me of like a Think and Grow Rich story, where it's like this overcoming adversity every time. And the really cool thing and this is the weirdest thing, again, serendipitous. I named this show the Make Money and Have Fun Show, and I'm just bringing all my friends. Really, I'm just reaching out to people. I'm like, hey, I know you're successful in your business. Do you want to come and talk on my show? And every person that comes on has the same exact story. They're either making a ton of money, but they're not finding any fulfillment, or they're completely fulfilled, but they don't have the money to sustain that. And somewhere they need to bridge that gap in that story. And so it's like this amazing thing where everybody's kind of filling in exactly what I want them to be for this show, which is that pinnacle of someone who's bridged that gap between their passion and their prosperity. And they're just doing both in that way.
Well, that's a really interesting observation. You're familiar with the concept flow? Do you know this? Dr. Malkievich, I think it is. When you find ways to get into states of flow, and I mean, obviously, when you're facing huge challenges, it can be trouble. I mean, I love this quote with Matthew McConaughey. He talks about being joyful instead of seeking happiness, seeking joy. Because you can be having a challenging adversity, but you can still find joy, and that kind of helps you keep going. So it's funny because it's like these little wins, you know what I mean? Like, imagine that you're in a place where your bank account looks horrible, you've got a lot of challenges, right? But then you make that sale, and you're like, and it's not about the sale, it's about the fact that the money feels different when it's something that you created, and it's really interesting. I mean, I went from making money from sewing leather journals. That was some pretty precious funds. When you make something and then someone likes it and you sell it like at a fair, it's pretty neat, Yeah. And then go into manufacturing things. Okay. And then that almost doesn't even feel real. It's pretty wild, and then you have other products like, masks, and, then it's like, it's almost like, you just have to keep going, because you are this piece, you are this wave of energy that's moving, and it's hard to see it at first, but it's like that sprout, that's coming up, and there's a certain climate of adversity that creates it, and sometimes you're in this. You have to go through the dark to get to the light, and it's really a true thing. And I went through a very challenging time, very challenging.
I bet.
Very challenging. Yeah, it was very challenging.
Sure.
And you know what? It was like, I mean, I can remember when I had to literally buy a charger for my cell phone, because my girlfriend had left on a plane. I didn't have a cell phone charger. Okay, my bank accounts were overdrawn. I had just liquidated all my funds, and I was driving a car I couldn't afford. And I had to literally reach into my change jar to go into 7-Eleven to buy a $9 phone charger, wondering how I was going to make it work, And I remember I made a sale. One special person that, was in Chicago bought like, I don't know, $3,000 worth of suits and whatever. But it's like, that is the place where you can't give up.
Yeah.
That's the place where you cannot give up. Do you know what I mean?
That's the place where you kick it in the most. It's
that's the place where you say, like, what am I really scared of? What's the thing that I'm really afraid of right now? Because if I can go through this, then, then once I bounce back, once I get through it, you know, you're going to be unstoppable, you know. You know, and really the thing, it was a tough lesson to learn, but I knew this lesson, but it was impulse, you know. I ended up lowering my overhead, and that was like my success formula, and I still live that right now, you know. And I really love it because I don't have to ever think about money, really, because right now in Portugal, I mean, I've positioned myself. It's a very economic place to live. You know, even my life in the States, I'm within my means now. And that has allowed me to, you know, when you can breathe, you know, you can,
things that much better.
You feel a lot better. Yeah. But sometimes you have to jump in, and that was the route that I took into full-time entrepreneurship, was just jumping in, you know, and I wouldn't change it. You know, it taught me so much. But I really think that it's about transformation. You know, I looked at myself and I said, you know what, I think I could really do something cool and transform not just my life right now, but I'm going to transform something else. I felt like I had long hair for a long time, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to have this barber. I'm just going to tell her, give me the best haircut ever, you know, the best haircut in the world. And I literally Googled best barbershop in Chicago.
I was going to say, you got to really trust your barber if that's the only orders you're going in with.
Right. And I actually went to, I was at the Baha'i Temple in Evanston in north of Chicago. And I literally Googled, I said, you know what, I'm going to cut my hair. And I literally Googled best barbershop in Chicago. It was I forget, in Bucktown or something, Logan Square. I went over there and I went out and I was like, wait, it's gone. I was like, wow, it looks so great. And then I still had my beard, you know. And I remember I was in Portugal and there was some cute girl who was like, but the barba, a barba, you know, like the beard in Portuguese. And I was like, I can't get rid of my beard. And she's like, oh, but just let's see, you know. I'm like, I haven't shaved my beard in so long, so I shaved my beard. It was the weirdest thing at first, and then I loved it, you know. And it's funny how you know, clothing, it's so powerful. You can sense it, right, when you're wearing a pair of jeans and a hoodie, you know, versus when you really, you know, when you build your own style, because clothing holds your vibration, right? And so when you start building things based on vibration, I like to think about that a lot. Then you can hold your vibration, right? And you can keep building. So that's what I love about right now. I'm remodeling my loft, right? Recreating it. So I literally thought to myself, what do I want to be surrounded with every day, right? And I was like, okay, really nice wood, like marble. It's not real marble. It's like this porcelain. It's beautiful.
I saw pictures.
Yeah, you saw the pictures. Okay, yes, like marble, wood, and white and black, you know, tones, and leather couches, and you know, and suit stuff, and in windows. So you know, vibration, I think, is key. So that was sort of my experience of transforming things, and you know, it's interesting. It's funny if you can make people not recognize you. You know, that's you know that you went through a transformation then.
One of the, I don't know if you listen to Dan Locke at all, but occasionally I'll listen to him. But he dropped one of the best lines I ever heard, and I've used it ever since. And I don't know if I ever told you about it, but here's the line. It's so simple. Your environment is always stronger than your willpower. And it's this idea that if you want to recreate your habits, right? A lot of people are into morning routines or nighttime routines or whatever. You know, those are like the most popular videos on YouTube. One of the things that really helps is having your environment set up in a way that's going to be conducive to you living in a way that you want. It's you know, it's the idea of going on a diet. If you have donuts in your house, they're going to get eaten. But if you want to actually go on a diet, you got to fill up your house with only things that you want to eat at that point. And it's the same thing with your environment. You can hack, in a sense, your environment for success or for whatever it is you're leaning towards. So what you're really talking about is the same thing, is designing your environment in a way that really is conducive to the lifestyle that you want to live.
Yeah, exactly. And when I realized that I needed to focus on my suit business, actually it was a couple of years ago, and I put everything in 2 suitcases. I realized, okay, one suitcase is going to be suit samples and the other suitcase is suits and a computer, you know what I mean? And I'm going to go and then drive. And And I realized it's like an airplane, and so when you lighten certain loads, whether it's you got too many projects before you're already off the ground, you got too many things, once you can focus in, I don't actually think that you need to focus on one. People told me that so many times. Nathan, don't you think you should just focus on one thing? I mean, you have no idea how many times I've heard that, but it's totally wrong. It's totally wrong because it's funny because during the pandemic, some people said to me, man, it's a really good thing you have other things than just suits. And I was, we've still been going great with Big Murphy's, but yeah, I have other things to do as well. But it's but you're right. It's that the environment is a key. That Greg Reed talks about. You're the average of the 5 people in your life. The people you surround yourself with, and finding mentors. Right now I'm having fun with learning about stock market and stuff. I found an amazing mentor. What do? You find a great mentor. And you learn. Yeah. And it's like that with clothing. Like when I first started learning, it took a while. And I mean, I remember I made myself 10 shirts and none of them fit. I was so upset. It was so expensive. I was so mad. And I sat there and designed everything and thought it out to a T. And they all came in the mail and I'm like, no, you know what I mean? And and that's just for me. But imagine I did that like when I first started out for like clients. That was painful. I remade all that kind of stuff. But
sure. It's funny for me because I kind of went through a clothing journey back when I was like 17 or 18. I was like, I was kind of in a similar spot to you where I'm like, I was wearing my go-to outfits in the summer were basketball shorts and a t-shirt. And then do you remember slides and socks? Like that craze that was around like 10 years ago, like the slide on sandals with like socks under them. It was like, it was bad. It was bad. Okay. And then the winter was the same thing, but it was cargo sweatpants instead of basketball shorts. So like I started looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, man, I could do so much better than this. And then the funny thing was this, I would look at people whenever I went out and I'm like, man, he looks amazing, but I have no idea why. Because I knew nothing about style really, or any vocabulary or terms or anything like that. And so I literally just started YouTubing this, and I went on these two channels for the most part who just talked about men's style, and I just studied those. And within like 3-4 years, I was like, man, this is so easy. I got this. And now it's like when you met me, I'm like asking you like about canvassing on your suits and like that most
you were extremely knowledgeable. Different cuts of suits that you were asking about, different types of shoes. You were extremely knowledgeable. Yeah, I did notice that. You have a natural ability, like you in sweatpants. You're the same guy because you're a very confident person in a good way. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's a real compliment. And so, and I think that clothing, it's like it's a fine tuner. You know what I mean? But it's it's funny, like the different memes or different initials, acronyms, or quotes that are around us. They influence us every day. So this shirt I'm wearing has like something written on it. It's a new one. It says Porto State of Mind. So that was kind of the thought.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's.
I remember. Do you remember we put this one down here at the bottom? So on the bottom of the shirts.
Yeah.
On the bottom of like the placket of your shirts, you always put like a little quote down there. And I remember it took me like weeks to come up with it, and you were like yelling at me. You're like, dude, I'm trying to make your shirt. What do you want it to say? And I was like, you know what? Put smile today on there. And I did this funny thing. One of my mentors taught me about this. On my phone, I have a list of reminders, and the reminders go off about every 2 hours throughout the day. And they're all little inspirational quotes. It's like, you're 3 feet from gold. Your wealth flows to you in abundance. You're blessed beyond belief. But the first one every single morning that goes off at 8 a.m. just says 2 words: smile today. And I was like, you know what? That's got to be at the bottom of my shirt.
Wow.
And now it's like my favorite thing that we put that there. It's so cool. It's
That's
so
awesome.
Cool at that point, because you didn't have enough letters for make money and have fun, or else that'd be
right.
I'm messing with you, dude. This has been awesome, man. This was great stuff.
Thank you. No, I love being on here with you. And I'm really excited for your journey, man. Like you just have, I loved your podcast last week, or maybe it was the week before last with Les Brown. That was so cool. What a special guy.
Interviewed Les Brown a couple weeks ago. Last week, I actually interviewed my book publisher, who's going to be publishing my book in early 2021. That'll be coming out. That'll be the Make Money and Have Fun book, which will basically be the kind of backbone of everything that I talk about. That has the entire philosophy in there. That's going to be so cool. So cool. It's another thing that I really fell in love with is writing. As you're an author yourself. So, you got your stuff going out. So it's just a fun journey, man. Like you talked about, I'm excited for where this all goes. And for me, this is just the beginning, and it's already a blast.
That's awesome. No, you're a Tesla rocket, dude. I see you, seriously.
Oh, geez. If Elon Musk makes a Tesla rocket, I'm moving to Mars. That guy's taking over the world.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, Nathan, what do you want to leave our friends with before you go? What's your closing thoughts as we?
I got a good closing thought. A lot of people want to do something, they have a dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, and a lot of times we are surrounded by, the people we love the most that are trying to look out for us, and so often, they sort of tell us, I don't know about that kind of thing, or sort of discourage us in certain ways. But there's a concept, speaking of rockets, that has to do with something called escape velocity. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So a rocket has to reach escape velocity in order for it to enter out of the Earth's atmosphere and into space.
Okay.
And so every entrepreneur, if you're going to make it, right, if you're going to really go for it, that difference between kind of going for it and really going for it is like literally here and here on the throttle, and that's a scary difference. But that escape velocity sort of, that ability to, get to your next level, that next level wants to come. The universe wants to live itself through you, wants to see you flourish, wants you to achieve those dreams, because we're all lights. We all reflect to other people and show other people, wow, they can do it too. So we're sort of, we're all in this process of realizing dreams. And I think that the most beautiful thing is realizing dreams and creating them. And, if you're looking for a formula for transformation, the best one I've found is traveling with an intention. And when we live in a world of our everyday, right? And this is actually like a little bit of some philosophy that I kind of just happened upon over my journey, and that we have this like ordinary world, and then we have the extraordinary world. And the extraordinary world is like, for instance, you've always imagined going to a certain country or a certain city or certain place that just is in your mind, that's just the wow place, right? So imagine the wow place, imagine the place that you live in every day. And so they have two different actual places in your actual mind, right? In your mind, thinking, wow, man, if I could go there, right? All of a sudden you're excited, right? In your everyday, you're in the world of like the ordinary. And so in the world of the ordinary, not everyone is going to see you as extraordinary, right? But when you move in the direction of the extraordinary world, you have to reintroduce yourself. You meet new people, and people get to know you for you. And when you bring a dream there, you bring an idea, right? I think that you end up finding that the universe brings to you people that will help you make it happen, or at least help you create clarity. That's how it usually works for me, with that's how I found mentors, how I created my suit business. That's how a lot of different things, but it's a comfort zone thing, when you lean out of it and you do it. I mean, look, dude, this show is awesome. Look what you've created. That you're the epitome of it. I mean, your entire I love your whole brand. Your whole personal brand is rock solid. Super cool.
Thank
so
you.
That's my thought, man. Is tell people to go for it. You'll never regret going and living a dream. You always regret if you have to wonder.
I love it. Dude, this has been phenomenal. This is probably one of my favorite interviews so far. You're definitely right up there in my my top 3 or 5 in there. So this has been so much fun, dude. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that the universe gave us a chance to finally come together.
Amen. I'm
And
excited.
you're actually, I forgot to mention this. You're actually my first international guest.
That's awesome.
It just goes to show you the power of Wi-Fi and the power of the internet. You're the first person streaming in from across the world at this
exactly.
point. I mean, what's it, 5 o'clock there for you? 6 o'clock, something like that?
Yep, going on 6. Yeah, and that's a good point. You know, your network doesn't have to be limited to your immediate area, right, or country. And there's a lot of intelligent people around the world, so connect with them, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The sky's the limit. Well, you folks all know the deal. We're here every week. I'm interviewing new entrepreneurs, new investors, and just having a blast every single time. So we'll see you next time on the Make Money and Have Fun show. See you, everybody.
Take care, brother. See ya.